All right, so today we're diving deep into something pretty unique. It's Eugenia's class notes.
From Academia BSB, right?
Yeah. Specifically, her English lesson looks like it was on March 31st, 2025 with your teacher, Paulo.
Interesting. So we're getting a peek into a real English class, level A2.
Exactly.
Right.
Which, for anyone who might not be familiar, means she's still getting the basics down.
Right. Basic phrases, everyday expressions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, but what I find fascinating is how detailed these notes are. We're not just talking vocabulary lists here. This is the whole shebang.
It is. It is. It shows how Academia BSB approaches language learning. It's not just about memorizing words.
Nope, not at all.
No.
So let's jump right in. We got to start with vocabulary, right? It's the foundation.
Absolutely.
And looking at the current class section, there are a lot of words here, like improvise jumps out at me.
Yeah, it means to kind of wing it, like think about a time you had to cook without a recipe.
Oh, totally. Or when your internet goes out and you're like scrambling for a solution.
Exactly. Then we have organize, which I'm sure we could all use a bit more of.
Definitely. And then clean up and tidy up.
Makes you think about household chores.
Yeah, or maybe just getting your desk in order. These are words you'd use every day.
Right, practical stuff for an A2 learner.
Oh, and speaking of everyday stuff, freezer. Got to have that vocabulary for the kitchen.
Essential. And next to that, interest rate. Now, that was a bit more,
abstract.
yeah, abstract, but also pretty important to understand, especially these days.
Definitely. It's about, how much it costs to borrow money or how much you earn on your savings.
Right. And then back to those practical verbs. To iron, to store, and to fold.
All about keeping things neat and tidy, I guess.
It seems like Teacher Paulo is building vocabulary around everyday routines.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we have some clothing items, jacket, coat, towel.
All things you might find in, say, a linen closet.
Exactly. Or maybe packed for a trip, depending on the weather.
Good point. And look, we even have some adjectives to describe feelings. Relaxing and stressful.
Yeah, I think everyone can relate to those, no matter their English level.
For sure. And simple prepositions like over and under. Those are fundamental for spatial awareness.
Oh, and cleaning products. That's a good one. Do you have a favorite brand?
I'm not sure if I'm loyal to any particular brand, but I know what I like.
Fair enough. And then we have specialty, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's about what makes something or someone stand out, right?
Like maybe your specialty is baking the most amazing chocolate chip cookies.
Or this podcast could be our specialty.
There you go.
Okay, next up, we're heading into the culinary world. To boil, essential cooking verb.
And look at this. Pig versus pork. Now that's important.
Yeah, the animal versus the meat. That distinction could be tricky for learners.
Totally. And it looks like we're getting a whole mini lesson on cooking terms.
Pressure cooker, seasoning, salt, garlic, black beans. I'm getting hungry.
Me too. All right, moving along. The vocabulary gets a bit more abstract now.
Practical, complicated, inventive, which they've equated to creative.
And strands equals varieties, like a little built-in synonym dictionary.
It is, which is helpful, especially at this level.
Okay, and finally, we have words related to like personal characteristics and work.
Lazy, disappointment, retirement. Those are big life concepts.
Yeah, and then the action of retiring, to get retired.
And family relationships, mother-in-law.
Oh, and the money words, salary and wage.
Public servant, to hold on to something.
And finally, happy, contrasted with worried, which is also given as concerned.
Wow, that's a really comprehensive list covering so many different areas of life.
It is, and it's not even all of it. We also have the past class vocabulary.
Right, words like had and have, did, respectively, extended family.
Then lives versus leaves. Looks like review is important at Academia BSB.
Makes sense. Reinforces what they've already learned.
And probably helps connect it to the new stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Like understanding the difference between had and have is crucial for talking about the past.
Yeah, and did for asking questions about things that already happened.
Exactly. And those concepts are likely to come up when talking about family history, which, by the way, is part of the writing assignment we'll get to later.
All right, so moving on to pronunciation. The notes mention a class podcast audio file.
Interesting. So they're incorporating listening practice, too.
Yeah, seems like it. It says it'll be available within 24 hours, but unfortunately, we don't have access to it.
Too bad. It'd be interesting to see how Teacher Paulo addresses pronunciation specifically.
Definitely. But just looking at the vocabulary, we can imagine some potential challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Like take improvise. The stress is on the first syllable. Improvise.
Interest rate is another one. It's all about the rhythm and those vowel sounds.
Specialty. That ending can be tricky. Specialty, not specialty.
Right. And how about pressure cooker? It's a compound noun, so the stress pattern shifts.
Pressure cooker. Good one.
And let's not forget the classic pig versus pork.
Oh, yeah. That vowel change is huge. Pig, short I sound. Pork, long O sound.
And from the past class list, we have respectively.
Respectively. Got to get all those syllables in.
And then there's the lives versus leaves confusion.
Ah, yes. Same spelling, but very different pronunciation and meanings. Lives, with a short I sound, is for the verb, like he lives in Brazil.
And leaves, with a long E sound, can be either the plural of leaf or the verb to leave.
Exactly. So context is key.
And I bet that audio file would have helped clarify all those nuances.
Oh, I'm sure it would have. Pronunciation practice is so important, especially at this stage.
Okay, now for the grammar portion. We've got a lot to cover here.
It does seem like a pretty comprehensive lesson.
So under past class, we have had versus have and did, which we already touched upon.
And those are really fundamental for talking about the past.
Right. Then we have respectively, which is all about connecting information in a specific order.
Like if you say John and Mary are 25 and 30 years old, respectively, you're saying John is 25 and Mary is 30.
Exactly. It keeps things clear. And then we have extended family and then for comparisons.
And of course, lives versus leaves again, which, as we said, is also a grammar issue, not just pronunciation.
Right. Now for the current class, we see imperfect.
I'm thinking that refers to the past imperfect tense.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's used to describe actions that were ongoing or habitual in the past.
Like I used to play piano every day.
Exactly. It's a little more nuanced than the simple past, which is what A2 learners usually focus on first.
Right. But introducing the imperfect at this stage can really help them add more detail to their stories.
Makes sense. Okay, then we have irregular plurals. English is full of those.
Oh, tell me about it. Child becomes children, tooth becomes teeth.
And then there's the classic interested versus interesting.
Ah, yes. That one always trips people up.
It's about who or what is feeling the interest, right?
Exactly. So if you say, I am interested in this podcast, it means the podcast is holding your attention.
But if you say, this podcast is interesting, it means the podcast itself is the thing that's causing interest.
Right. It's subtle, but important. And finally, we have conditional clauses.
Those are about hypothetical situations or possibilities like if this, then that.
Yeah, like if I had $1 million, I would travel the world.
A classic conditional. All right, now for the fun part, writing.
Yes. We get to see Eugenia's work in action.
And the prompt is pretty interesting. It says, describe the people in your family, their daily routines, personal qualities, and family history. What makes them special? How do they influence your life and the way you see the world?
Wow. That's a lot to unpack. It really encourages her to think deeply about her family.
It does. And we have her first draft and the improved version with Teacher Paulo's corrections.
This is great. It shows us the learning process in real time.
Like in the first draft, she writes, I have a husband and a daughter. My daughter's 27.
Short, simple sentences. Very typical for an A2 learner.
And Teacher Paulo helps her combine them into one smoother sentence. I have a husband and a 27-year-old daughter.
Much better flow.
Totally. And then there's the change from the other side of my family to most of my extended family.
More formal and precise. And it uses that extended family term from the vocabulary list.
Good catch. And look, she adds years old for clarity. My mother is 81 becomes my mother is 81 years old.
It's all about those little details that make the writing clearer.
And check this out. They live in Brasilia. My parents and my older sister live in Colorado.
Two separate sentences.
But in the improved version, it becomes, most of my extended family lives in Brasilia. My parents and my older sister, however, live in Colorado.
Ah, so not only is it one smooth sentence now, but she's also using however to show contrast.
Exactly. And one more important change. My mother is 81 years old and my father is 84. They were born in São Paulo and Minas Gerais, respectively.
There it is, respectively used correctly. She's applying what she learned.
I love seeing that. Now, there's a section for Teachers Enhancement Insights, but it's blank.
I'm guessing that's where Teacher Paulo gave Eugenia more personalized feedback.
Probably, yeah. Maybe suggestions for improving her ideas or explanations.
Right. Things that go beyond just grammar and vocabulary.
Okay, now for the final product. My funny and loud husband.
Let's see what she came up with.
The first sentence is, She had always known that he was louder than most people she knew.
Okay, so she's using the past perfect had known correctly.
And the comparative then is also spot on.
Good stuff.
Whenever their extended family visited, he did his best to make everyone laugh.
Past simple did for a completed action. And again, that extended family term.
All right, this next sentence is a bit more complex. Their 2 sons and 3 nephews, who live in different cities, respectively, always said they missed his storytelling, even if they had heard the same stories countless times.
Wow, that's impressive. Present tense live for a current state.
Respectively is perfectly placed, linking the sons and nephews to their cities.
And past perfect had heard for an action completed before another past action.
The notes actually highlight some errors she probably made in an earlier draft.
Like lives instead of live, a misspelling of respectively, and maybe some confusion with the past perfect had.
But she clearly corrected them all.
This shows she's really paying attention to the feedback and applying what she's learning.
Okay, last sentence. It was more out of politeness than amusement, she suspected. But it always made him happy, as would the prospect of a long and happy retirement, if he ever leaves his job.
Another then for comparison and retirement from the vocabulary list.
And the verb leaves is in the present simple conditional clause. She's got those hypotheticals down.
She does. This whole paragraph is really well written. It's clear, engaging, and uses a variety of grammar structures correctly.
And it definitely fulfills part of the prompt by describing her husband's personality and hinting at his impact on the family.
It does, it does. All right, let's quickly look at the idiomatic expressions section.
It just has one example. Must-haves I can't live without.
So, Teacher Paulo is introducing her to idioms.
Yeah, those phrases where the meaning isn't literal.
Like must-haves are things you consider essential.
Exactly. And understanding idioms is important for sounding more natural and fluent.
Absolutely. Okay, then there's a reading section with a passage about family dinner tensions.
And some comprehension questions to check her understanding.
Looks like reading is a key part of the curriculum at AcademiaBSB.
It definitely seems that way. And finally, we have sections noted for irregular plurals, interested, interesting, and conditional clauses.
Which we've already discussed. So this single lesson really does cover a lot of ground.
It does. And then there's the homework section, which is simply to review the notes.
Makes sense. Got to reinforce that learning.
And bibliographic references, which points to Grammar Unit 107 prepositions.
So they're encouraging further study.
And the upcoming linguistic scope is irregular verbs.
Looks like Eugênia has a lot to look forward to.
And finally, we have the class stats.
I'll see those numbers.
Vocabulary growth, 2 words.
Not bad for one lesson.
Comprehensive lexicon repertory, 26 words.
So her vocabulary bank is growing steadily.
Oral fluency and speech engagement span, 60 minutes.
That's a good sign. She's actively participating in the lesson.
Listening wavelength, sonic engagement, 7,200 seconds.
More evidence of active listening.
And phonetic deviation ratio, -25%.
Interesting. That probably means her pronunciation is improving.
Makes sense. So what we're seeing here is a really data-driven approach to teaching.
It is. Teacher Paulo is clearly tracking Eugenia's progress closely.
And using that data to personalize her learning experience.
Exactly. These notes are incredibly detailed, and they really show the dedication of both the teacher and the student.
They do. And, you know, looking at all this makes me think about why we learn languages in the first place.
It's not just about the grammar rules or the vocabulary, right?
Nope. It's about connecting with others.
Sharing ideas, stories, experiences.
Exactly. And it seems like AcademiaBSB really understands that.
They do. You can see it in the way they approach teaching. It's not just about the language, it's about communication.
It is. And you know, that reminds me of something Neil deGrasse Tyson once said. He was talking about the vastness of the universe and how, even though we're just tiny specks, we have this incredible ability to connect with each other through communication.
That's beautiful.
It is, and I think it applies perfectly to language learning. For in the grand tapestry of existence, while the threads of language are vital, it is the vibrant and meaningful connections forged through communication that truly illuminate our understanding of the cosmos and each other.
And at Academia BSB, it's not merely about the language, it's all about communication.